was sacked. And, you know, I think he played for Belgium that night and was told straight after the game in an interview that Poch had gone. And, you know, his mouth was going from ear to ear just with a grin on it. It was, he couldn't hide it. So, you know, he must have been some sort of, you know, divisive...
Snake is the word,
yeah. Yeah, snake, yeah.
Andy flips like that. Like yesterday, right? Yesterday, he fucking loved Toby. Toby was the fucking bollocks. Yeah, I mean, he's the bee's knees. Love Toby. Today, signs a contract. He's snake. Absolute.
Yeah. Leave Spurs, you're dead.
Andy's like the modern day gun runner, isn't he? And he just splits in between each side and going, listen, I'm going to make you lot angry today by saying, I love Levy. And then the next day you're running off to the other side going, I hate Levy now. Let's kill everyone.
He's a triple agent.
Yeah. El Chapo Creed.
Exactly.
I actually think
divide and rule. I actually think anyway.
I think Andy's the snake. Actually, he calls everyone else a snake, but I think Andy's the biggest snake here.
That's the snakiness.
That's contentious.
And the thing is, I do like snakes.
That's contentious. I think we need to move on to another contentious issue, and that was something, Andy, that you wanted to talk about, which has been, I don't think it's been formally announced yet, but you know, they said they're talking about it, so it's actually probably going to happen. But this is these vaccine passports. So, go.
Yeah. So, what they're saying is for some events, so not everything in our daily lives, but certain events that we have to go to, whether that be Premier League or music events or going to nightclubs, you might need a vaccine passport. And this is something they want to roll out. Now, what some people are saying is that this is going to cause a segregation in society, and it's impinging on human rights and all this kind of stuff. Now, I see their point of view, but of course, if you have the vaccine, then you can get the passport. So the vaccine's freely available for everybody. So is it an issue?
It's not freely available for everyone, though, is it? It's not freely available for everyone. No, it isn't, Andy, because there are some people that can't take it due to medical issues.
But they would have it freely available if they could take it.
Yeah, but that's not that's not the same question. That's not the same point.
But they would have an exemption in their passport.
There'd be an exemption, surely.
So okay, so let's look at it from the other angle. So I've had a conversation with people on both sides of the camp, and I understand, all of the positions.
Yeah.
The issue I think that they're going to have is that our season tickets were sold to us in May.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer. I would be very interested to have someone read the small print. But if now the condition of entry changes,
exactly,
and for whatever reason, and let's say it's not a medical reason, let's say, because I've had this conversation with somebody, let's say I am, let's say there's another reason why I don't want to do it, and it doesn't really matter what it is. That's my prerogative.
Yeah, sure. I'm in
my late 20s. There's not enough data. No. This is the straw man, right?
Okay.
So the person's in their late 20s. They're getting married. They don't know if there's problems that they might have struggle with fertility. This might exacerbate that problem or not exacerbate that problem. Nobody knows, right? So their point of view is, I'm in my late 20s. This doesn't, I've got a much lower chance of it being a problem, but I bought my season ticket, so COVID being a problem for me, but I bought my season ticket back in May. And now what you're doing is you're putting an additional condition of entry on. So where does that leave me as a season ticket holder?
Yeah, but I think this is a bigger picture than just...
It is, but we're talking about this. But we're talking about it in the context of a Spurs podcast and about what we're talking about rather wider societal. But it is a case in point.
Exactly, Simon. And even in a wider societal, if you look at it in a wider societal situation, context, even. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. But concerts and all sorts of things like concerts and festivals and all that. They open it up. They say that's it. Beyond this date, you can go to those. Tickets are now freely available. and then they go, right, okay, they were sold out, right, okay. But they say to you now, afterwards, subsequently, condition of entry, you need to have vaccine passport.
Exactly.
But we're going to give you 2 months to do it. So actually, the vaccine is no longer a voluntary
Exactly.
thing.
Steve, I think it's quite complicated. I don't think it will go through personally.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I think the root of it is trying to sort of push younger people to think, I need to do this. Now, I get what Simon was saying in that, well, it's my choice, etc. But the bigger picture of all of that, and I'm speaking from the fact that my mother lost her life to COVID, is that it's not just you, it's who else you pass it on to. So the argument shouldn't be, I'm okay, I'm going to take my chances.
But the particular example I was using is where people have got a particular concern, which can't be readily addressed. Yeah. Not rather than. I mean, but I also know young people who genuinely like. But I'm not over. I'm not over 50. I don't have any. I'm in my 20s and I'm young. Coercing me to take something that there isn't, as far as they're concerned, a few years of history of this thing. If in 20 years' time something happens that causes blood clots or brain hemorrhages or something like that. Mm-hmm. I'm late 40s. I'll be in my late 50s. Maybe I'll be in my 60s. If you're in your 20s, that's a life-changing thing. And I can see why people are at the younger end of the spectrum are resistant and hesitant.
I mean, this is where
you educate them. You don't coerce them. Is my point. You educate them.
I agree, and I think the education thing is where they're really letting themselves down with this vaccine.
100%.
They should be treating people more like adults, because this whole vaccine hesitancy thing is a real problem for lots of different reasons.
Yeah, because there's lots of misinformation, all sorts of stuff.
The facts with vaccines are that in the history of vaccines, and don't forget, we've given it to now hundreds of millions of people, the history of vaccines is that after 2 months, if there haven't been any side effects, there's never been a case of any vaccine causing side effects beyond those 2 months. So there is no data available to
So, but this is educational information that therefore we should be pumping out positive educational messaging, not using a sort of doggy treats to lure young people into doing something they're worried about doing.
But then you get the idiots in Trafalgar Square standing up and saying we should be hanging nurses.
Yeah.
So you're getting all that misinformation, which is the root of all these problems, is that people don't understand what they should be believing or what they should be listening to.
It just sort of linked. Sorry, Andy, go on.
Sorry, no, go ahead, Jamie.
I was just going to say, just sort of linking this back to Spurs with the vaccine passports. An email came out today from Spurs to say that on Thursday the 29th of July at 10 a.m, match tickets are for sale for Man City, Chelsea and Watford to One Hotspur members. So it's going to be incredibly interesting to see what the T's and C's are, what the conditions of it, of people being able to buy.
It doesn't come until September, does it? This doesn't come into September.
End of September, I think. Yeah.
So the Man City game and all of those, the early August games, and they don't figure it. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, because personally, it doesn't affect me. I'm vaccinated up, you know what I mean. So, it doesn't affect me. I can go. I can go. I've had COVID, and I know that if I hadn't been vaccinated up, I'd be fucked. So I do understand that, but there are both sides of the argument. And Lee, I certainly empathise with where you're coming from because of this, because of this situation.
Last point I was going to say, Steve, on that is that actually, whilst I'd personally rather be in a stadium full of people that have been vaccinated, I don't think in terms of how society works, that works either, that you have to, it is a condition, and people we live in a society of free choice. I think if you don't get it, that's crazy, but if you choose not to, you choose not to. So there has to be another way, because we do live in a free society where people can make that choice.
And that's And then that's when them saying that they were going to withdraw the option to have a negative lateral flow test within 48 hours is about it is about coercion. It's not about making sure it's a COVID-free environment, because as we
I agree, because lateral flow tests are just
we know two
anyway,
things. We know that if you've had both, you could have COVID and not really know it, even if you've had 2 vaccines. And we know that lateral flow tests aren't 100% accurate, but they're sort of halfway there. So either way, you're trying to manage the risk as best you can, but the reality is it's never going to be 100% anyway. So you just have to have as the sort of the totality of enough of a shield around it. But totally. I understand the argument.
But life isn't 100%, is it? So
the bigger concern, I think, is as you say, is whether they start to impose retrospective terms and conditions on people who've already bought season tickets, and then I think that's where it becomes a legal minefield, because I'm fairly sure that Spurs has got a few lawyers in the camp who in the fan base who would say, I'm not particularly sure you can do that, and I think that's where it'll start to get tricky. So let's hope it is just nudging rather than it's actually going to be policy they want to bring in.
Just to finish up on this, okay, and before we move on, a lot of this stuff, this was discussed, I think, in the last couple of days in the media, and if you look at this purely from a yes or no decision, is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? They spoke about it, and the headline is you will need to be have a vaccine passport to attend Premier League game. That was the headline. And when they go into the detail, they say, if you go to Premier League games or you go to concert or this or whatever, you will need a vaccine passport. What about the Championship? What about League One? What about League Two? What is it? Fuck them. We don't give a fuck about you. The Premier League is where it matters. It's just
it's about levers, isn't it? It's about levers, because it's about levers. And it's about basically what leverage would they, what levers do they have against various groups of people? So if you know that 18 to 24-year-olds are more likely to go to, the Premier League, they think they're going to get bigger numbers there. That's the leverage. But then they also went on to say, well, actually, places of worship, cinemas, any crowded indoor space. So university students, you've got to have both jabs before you're allowed to go back and attend in-person lectures in a university. I mean,
20,000 plus, aren't there? So it's where this, but it's a very tricky one. It's a very complex situation, I think, and
it is, and I totally get that.
And this government
I agree with what you're saying about education. That's the issue.
Well, indeed,
they probably will. Okay, so should we, Andy? We've got. I think we've probably got about 5 minutes, just about 5 minutes left, really. So, Andy, before we wrap up,
do you want me to run the numbers?
No, I want you to run the numbers right at the very death, right? But before you spoke about you want to talk about a player that we haven't even bought yet. So, just you want to talk about Romero, so crack on.
Oh yeah, Sergio Romero.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to buy Sergio Romero, who's apparently the best centre-back in Serie A. And what did I say? I can't remember what I was going to talk about now. Oh, yeah. So, oh, God. So is he going to be, because obviously we're going to spend a lot of money on him, is he going to be our Van der Vaart?
No, not Van der Vaart.
Van Dijk, sorry.
Right.
No, Van der Valk.
Oh, Van der Valk.
Yeah. I used to like that music, actually. Yeah. Yeah, so is he going to be our Van Dijk? Is he going to be the one that's actually going to come in and transform our defence? But you're a coach, come on.
So
give us the lowdown, Andy.
Well, I want Steve to give us the lowdown, because he's the top coach, and
I think George A. Romero would be better, given our defence, like The Walking Dead. A horror show at the back, anyway.
Do you think we're going to end up? Well, do you think we're going to finish the transfer window with Eric Dyer still still in situ, or do you think he might?
Yeah,